Welcome back to the Makers of MidCity podcast. Today, I have the opportunity to sit down with Anthony Rossi, Director of Property Management here at RCP Companies. Thank you so much for joining me.
No problem. Thanks for having me. What's going on, Clark?
Yeah, I'm excited to have the conversation. I think, honestly, anyone that's listening that's here to learn about MidCity and know more, the role that you play is pivotal in kind of what MidCity has become and what it's going to become. But before we kind of dive into that, talk a little bit about your journey to get here. I know you're not originally from the Southeast, moved here from Vegas area. Talk a little bit about all of that.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me. This is fun. I haven't done recording in a while. I did a lot of this in college, but it's been quite a few years. A lot of Zoom calls. Yeah. I guess it's kind of similar, right? I am not from the area. If the accent or lack of accent didn't tell you already, but I'm actually from the West Coast. I originally am from California and made our way out to the Southeast by way of Vegas. I was funny enough, early on, I was a journalist, but became a mall guy. I started working retail in college and just became fascinated with the world of commercial real estate and followed my mall manager around like a puppy. Ended up becoming good friends with them. Later down the road, ended up working for the guy, but he was the one that really inspired me to get into commercial real estate. And so back in 2012, I had my first opportunity with a company called Westfield and never looked back. I made my way to Vegas in 2018. It's funny. Vegas was the first place that I ever wanted to go and just decided we're going to do it. So often before that, it's the jobs that kind of led you around. This was the first time I said, now let's do something for us. And the job will come later, and it worked out well. But Vegas is a great city. It was tough to leave. I think a lot of people have a particular impression of Vegas. It's funny. If you were to just remove the Strip, which coincidentally enough isn't even in the city of Vegas, it's actually in the city of Paradise. But if you were just to remove the Strip, this might be controversial, but Las Vegas is not dissimilar to Huntsville.
Really?
It's a very big military town, big family community, the prettiest, largest parks you've ever seen. Compete toe to toe with what we have here. The biggest difference overall, I think, with Vegas is because the Strip is there, over 60% of the residents there are hospitality trained in some way. And it doesn't matter if you're part of the hospitality industry or not, you're just hospitality trained naturally there. As someone that moved there from California and then obviously moved here to Huntsville later, it's funny because while everyone here is obviously very friendly, that's what the South is known for. In Vegas, everybody's so professionally hospitality trained that you get just as much eye contact and smiles and hello. And it's just as easy to go out and meet new people in Vegas as it has been here. And so, I find a lot of similarities. The entertainment aspect obviously is what's we're chasing here now. And I think MidCity District is a big part of that.
Yeah. And so you were in Vegas prior to getting here. It's interesting that you talk about this, the pool of hospitality people and that everyone's hospitality trained in Vegas. Because I feel like that's probably one of the biggest hurdles and biggest struggles that you deal with here at MidCity, or that not even just MidCity as a whole, but Huntsville. In the greater Huntsville area. Hospitality workers, hospitality trained, or not even trained, just willing to work in hospitality is a hard thing to find. How did RCP get on your radar, and what was that transition like to Huntsville from being out west to then now being in the Southeast?
Yes. So in 2020, everything shut down, including the Vegas Strip. And I even spent some time there. And if I could find the pictures, I think you'd be fascinated by them. But literally Caesar's Palace boarded up. It was just the most amazing thing you've ever seen. And so, we thought, you look back historically what goes on in Vegas, and something like that generally takes place every 8 years or so. And so while we love the city, we thought, we've been wanting to get to the Southeast for a long time. And so let's maybe take this opportunity to set some roots somewhere. I was actually recruited into Atlanta, and I worked out in Atlanta for 2 years. I was a general manager of an asset out there called Ponce City Market. Atlanta was not what we had anticipated being in the South. After 2 years, roughly 2 years, I had a recruiter reach out to me and said, "Hey, I'm calling about an opportunity in Huntsville." And I said, "Where's Huntsville?" And she gave me a bit of the background explanation. My wife, funny enough, had actually been here, I forgot, years before. And so she said, no, let's go take a look at the town. So my family and I came out here one weekend. We did all the tourism things you can imagine. We went to the Huntsville Tourism Center, and we did our kids did the scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
We had a great time, and I think my wife reached over to me and said, it feels really safe here. And I said, yeah, it does. And I think it's one of the more charming things about the city is as big as it is, it still feels a little like Mayberry, you know, in some respect, if anyone gets that reference. But no, the hospitality, you know, workforce here, that is something we talked about before. It's funny because there's two things that I think we have a challenge with here. And it's not just us, RCP, but it's all of our tenants. It's anybody here that wants to put together a concept. Even if you have a proven concept that is first to market here, it's difficult to maintain those standards because we don't have the hospitality training here locally. Nashville, Atlanta, Birmingham. I mean, there are so many significantly larger markets nearby that somebody who has any inkling to get into that world, you can make a real living there. Restaurant management, hotel management, whatever it may be. Those opportunities are just starting to trickle in here. So you'll notice that, you know, when we have a new restaurant that opens up, oftentimes they're recruiting talent from out of state. That's the same reason I think why, you know, RCP ended up looking for someone like me, is because there really hadn't been anybody in this market before who had touched on retail, who had touched on mixed use, who had touched on malls, who had touched on master plan developments. And the thing that for me, I'll put it all together, was my time in Vegas. It really made me wonder why commercial real estate isn't focusing more on hospitality. I mean, look, we're the ones building the hotels. We're the ones building the residential buildings. So why do we not have more firm understanding what's happening? And it was in 2020 when everything went down that I decided I'm going to go back for my master's degree, and I'm about to wrap that up.
Wow.
I have all my credits are finished, and I should be doing my research project in the spring, and I will have my master's in hospitality administration. And it's something that I'm really proud of. It's come full circle for me in the industry. And I like to think that I'm a bit of a leader in that space. I don't know how many people have come from the commercial real estate world and transitioned to hospitality like that, but it's given me a real true understanding of the challenges on both sides. I mentioned the twofold, the hospitality workforce piece. You know, the other thing that so once we start actually recruiting the hospitality workforce to the city, that's going to be because the city itself is growing. We're going to have more retail shops, more restaurants, everything. Back in Atlanta, my biggest challenge, let's say with just janitorial, for example, my biggest challenge in the talent pool wasn't competing with other janitorial companies or people being poached by the janitorial companies. It was them being poached by other industries because our team was hospitality trained.
Yeah.
They understood, they could go, it doesn't matter if they speak English or not. They could look someone in the eye. They can be respectful. They can help them with a directory, whatever it may be. And these people, so we were actually having our hospitality type staff, our janitorial folks, our valet staff were being poached by other industries who are saying, these guys understand hospitality.
Wow.
And so that brings an entirely different challenge. I mean, once we actually do build up that workforce here, I mean, people are going to be recruiting this workforce to other industries entirely. So it will be a challenge forever.
Yeah, and it's and as Huntsville's continuing to grow, and like you alluded to it earlier, it's you know, you're going to have these. I mean, I see it all the time with people that I know that are working in hospitality. You know, they're a brewer somewhere, they're a server somewhere, and then you see them in 3 months, and I got a 9 to 5.
Yes,
and that happens. I mean, I can think of probably 4 that's happened in the last month that I know of. And that's not going to slow down.
No. And what's funny, everyone, look, hospitality is known for, especially restaurant business, high turnover rate. I don't have the stats, but I would be willing to bet our turnover rate here is probably higher than the average. And for that very reason.
Yeah. And it's one of my favorite books. And Cody with Octo Hospitality actually recommended it on one of the episodes, was Unreasonable Hospitality. Oh, yeah. Yep. And that I think anybody should read that book, no matter what industry you're in, because it's like that. If you're hospitality trained, you're very marketable.
Yes.
And there's a living to be made in the hospitality realm, but having that book, it was a great business book that wasn't a business book. And I think the application and kind of the conversation we're having today, I think that it's a perfect fit.
It is. And I'll tell you this, just because I'm a bit of a geek like this too. If you enjoyed Unreasonable Hospitality, the he references Danny Meyer often in that book. Danny Meyer has a book which is called Setting the Table, which the two of those together, I mean, it's a blueprint. It's an absolute blueprint. Yeah, I recommend checking it out.
Perfect. I definitely will. So we talked a little bit about it off air, but that blueprint, there's a blueprint that you're kind of working with for MidCity, and there's different stages throughout that blueprint that you're kind of in, and talk a little bit about those stages and then where you are in that process?
All right. So hospitality, like any of the industry, I mean, you're going to have a vision. I mean, it all starts with a vision. And then you put together a strategy around that vision. Eventually you put together processes to support that strategy.
Yeah.
And then once everything comes together, you make it a system and you put it in place. Now, this is what all good hospitality organizations do. The challenge is trying to scale that across 140 acres, right? With multiple stakeholders, trying to unify a vision, over hundreds of retailers and residents, trying to unify a set of standards, both visual standards and operating standards. I mean, that's where, the challenge, comes in for us is the scalability of that. And that's a big part of why I'm here and what the association does. In fact, the association itself, we put together bi-monthly tenant meetings to make sure that everybody understands, look, not only what the larger goal is and what we're building here in MidCity, but what each of their individual roles are. And it's almost like a snowball effect, right? I mean, if we can get people excited about their own role and how it impacts the district, they're going to continue to be motivated as they see the success come along with the district. They're going to understand that their role is impactful. Their individual role, everybody's individual role goes into making MidCity what it is. And so, look, as their success snowballs and our success snowballs, people feel a real sense of ownership and pride in the district, like it's their own. And it's a challenge to build, but it's something that I think I've seen transition here quicker than any place that I've ever been before. I mean, people are really buying into the vision of what this is. I will give you an example. On the property management side, right? We need to understand, I can only do so much what happens within a tenant space, within a restaurant, if they have a bad meal experience for whatever reason. But what we can do is manage everything outside of that. So, just a good practice, here's something that I found that scales very easily from the hospitality industry, is actually physically walking as if you are the customer and coming up with an identity. The identity could be, let's say it's a mother of two, one stroller. She's trying to get to Two Lejour. There's nowhere to park on MidCity Drive. She has to park in front of REI. It's raining. She parks in the fifth spot back in the second row. Literally walk in her feet and understand what that experience is going to be like for her. Are all of our ADA pathways clear? Are there trash cans? Is there a place where she can get out of the rain? I mean, it's understanding what it feels like from the customer perspective so that we can get down there and tailor the service standards. We can get down and tailor our service to what the customer needs.
I think it's interesting because with 140 acres, to tailor an experience and try to see what the customer, what the client, or what the community would experience from every angle. How do you go about, as new projects and new buildings and new things are coming up, there's obviously new ways in which the community can interact with that.
Yes.
How do you go about looking at all those different angles and making sure they adequately support that long-term vision of the MidCity district, 140 acres in all?
There are so many variables in a development like MidCity that it is almost impossible to predict what it's going to look, feel, behave like. What customers are going to choose to do as opposed to what we want them to do as far as where they're going to go in the district, how traffic is going to flow. We have a pretty good idea, but there are so many variables that we can't accurately predict everything. I think for me, being able to rely on my previous experience in master plan developments is been key to ensure that we're at least operating exceptionally in the areas that are currently open.
So, I mean, obviously your experiences prior to coming here to Huntsville and working with RCP has prepared you for what you do today. And you wouldn't, the position you have is because of the experiences you've had prior, the jobs you've had. But with a development like MidCity, being an old mall, being 140 acres and trying to unify from point A to point B and everywhere in between, was there things that maybe, though you were prepared for the job, that this development as a whole kind of threw some curveballs at you?
Yeah, I guess let's start with the fact that this was a mall, and I think malls have been improperly maligned, personally, not exclusively, but look, I started in this business in 2012, and this was coming out of the housing crisis, and malls were already had a big target on their back. Reports were everywhere that Amazon was killing them off. What people didn't realize at the time is I got into the industry, your B and C malls were dying. They absolutely were dying. But your A malls and your A markets were thriving. Traffic was up. Sales were up. We were getting leasing deals that were stronger than the leasing deals that were written up 10 years before. And so, I think some of these A malls maybe relaxed a little too much as the B and C malls started pulling as the B and C malls started realizing that there was no coming back from this, right? We were overbuilt. And so the mixed use developments that you're seeing today pop up everywhere really started with those B and C market malls. And I think the proof of concept is there all over the country on being able to convert these into livable, walkable areas. So again, with that proof of concept there, it was really exciting to be able to come to Huntsville. But because of the history here with the mall, there is so much ownership that the community feels on this project and so much pressure on this project to make sure that we come out with something that is not only impressive, but makes them feel like it's part of their home, it's part of their community, and it always has been.
Yeah, and I feel like the work you do, you have your hands in a lot of different things all the time because there's so much going on. I mean, it's hard to drive. As a Huntsville native myself, I mean, it's incredible to see what y'all have been able to accomplish here at MidCity. Being able to, work with y'all with the podcast and other capacities, like knowing a little bit more and just kind of like, this is a pretty cool space. How do you go about, what does a typical day look like for a director of property management for a 140 acre development plus all the other things that RCP does?
Well, let me tell you, it's certainly going to get more difficult as more assets come online. I had an old boss, funny enough, who compared what we do to being a high school principal, and I don't disagree with that. I mean, there are so many aspects to the job. Look, it's management of personnel. It's understanding building operations. It's being able to manage a budget. It's a lot of it is processes and procedures and creating a system, as we talked about earlier, that is going to help this place run on its own. I mean, that's the idea. I mean, when everything is so well polished, the intervention from me or my team, I mean, will be few and far between.
So as we're sitting here and recording this, we're at the end of 2024. 2025 is right around the corner, which is crazy to think about. And MidCity has a long way to go. I mean, it's come a long way, but it's still much more in the process. Much more is happening. As we're getting into 2025, what are you most excited about seeing come live and kind of the future for MidCity District?
Yeah, and this certainly isn't to take away from Wellery at all, because it's an amazing building. Anthem House is so cool to me because it's another new concept to Huntsville. It's hospitality living, and it's something that the proof of concept is out there, and I think we're ripe for it, especially with the amount of government contracts that we have here and roles that maybe only span 6-9 month contract roles. I think Anthem House is going to be very, very special. Because it's not only going to feel like a residence, but it's going to feel like we have just a really killer hotel right in the center of the district already. And I think it's going to be very popular. So that's what I think I'm most excited about, but we have so much that hasn't even been announced yet that I'd love to share with you. But I think those are probably going to be on later podcasts. I think I'm hoping we're going to get some great news about Q4 retail sales in general. I feel like, consumer confidence is up. This is certainly just speculative, but everything that I have been reading, it sounds like at least the retail is trending in the right direction and puts us in a good position to lock up some of these deals that we have right at the finish line now.
Yeah. And it's incredible to see. I think this idea that people can live, work, and play here at MidCity, with the Anthem House, with Wellery, with Metronome where we're at now and all the other developments, it's gonna really, I think 2025 we're gonna see that. And I think 2025 is gonna be one of those, oh my goodness, there's a lot out here. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of things. Go to a show at the Orion, come early, maybe do a staycation here. Maybe like it's gonna really change not only what the area, the Southeast as a whole experiences within Huntsville and MidCity, but it's gonna change the way Huntsville experiences MidCity.
It is, and I'll tell you this, and you might already know this, but our traffic again, we had another great year. Our traffic has been up again, and that's with the Orion as well. What we are going to see in 2025 with the addition of with the retail, with more restaurants, with more residents here, you're going to see dwell time increase significantly. And I mean, if there are two things that we want to measure here, it's traffic, who's coming, when are they coming, and how long are they staying, and what are they doing while they're staying here. Traffic has been great. Dwell time has been okay, but the more offerings that we have here, the dwell time is going to continue to increase, and it's going to put us on par with some of the best Class A developments across the country.
Yeah, and I think we'll have to have you back on the podcast in 2025 because I think hopefully more and more things will be announced. We can talk about things that maybe we couldn't talk about today.
Man, I'd love to.
And I think there's so many new and exciting things happening here at MidCity. I think for those that maybe are listening that are like, I'm going to wait till construction's over. There's so much construction. I'm just going to wait. There's a lot open right now. And there's a lot going to be open. And so don't wait, get out here, experience MidCity, and just be a part of the community that's being built out here. But I appreciate you taking the last little bit and chatting about your journey here to work with RCP and the journey and the continued developments that are happening here at MidCity. But thank you so much for being here.
No, thanks for having me. I had a great time.